Welcome to the Worthy Woman podcast with Aston Simmons. I have such a juicy guest today. We were just speaking off air, and honestly, we were like, we need to start recording because it was just getting hot and juicy and exciting. I'm super excited to have this beautiful woman here. She's so amazing, so beautiful. It's the beautiful Ruby Josif, and we are going to be talking and unpacking all things women and sex. We're going to be going into our pleasure. We're going to be talking about connecting to ourselves so that we can really feel comfortable and confident and open in our sexuality and being in sexual intimacy with our partners, which is so important if you're in an intimate relationship. So if you are relating to anything that I'm saying, please stick around. You're going to get so much value. We're going to dive into all of this and so much more. I'm going to hand it over to beautiful Ruby to give us a bit of a background on her. But Ruby is a holistic sex coach and female sexuality specialist. So I am just so excited to dive into this chat. I'm literally sitting on the edge of my seat. Like, it's going to be amazing. We're already really feeling all the vibes from our chat before going live. So I'm going to hand you over to this beautiful woman so she can let us know a bit more about her, and then we'll dive into it.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, Aston. I'm so excited. It's such a pleasure to be here. Oh, so a little bit about me, as you've already said. So I'm a holistic sex coach and I specialize in female sexuality. Um, and I'm just so passionate about supporting women to shed the layers of conditioning that they've received from society and the world, and guide them to a place of sexual liberation, whatever that looks like and encompasses for them. Yeah, that's where my
Oh my
passion lies.
God, I absolutely love this so much. I literally was just telling Ruby that when I was like in year 6, I don't think I've shared this before. I literally had a sex ed class, and I came home and told everyone at my dinner table at home that I wanted to be a sex therapist. So this is like a dream come true, speaking to such a beautiful and powerful sex coach like yourself. So super excited. I love your work. I love your passion, and just I love how deeply you can talk about this topic in a way that's so relatable and also so safe and comfortable and nurturing is the word I want to say, because I think, like you said, so many women have so much baggage around intimacy and their sexuality, their body. They don't even feel safe or comfortable in their body. And it breaks my heart because I feel like we all deserve that. It's our birthright. There is nothing wrong, dirty, anything. You know, all those stories we've been taught, I really think have really no truth to them. And I honestly feel like we could do a whole podcast on unpacking them. Like, there has been that much shame, like we were talking about before we went live, that some people have the family shame, and then there's the societal shame. There's just so much around sexuality, and a lot, particularly for women, and it can be so confusing to navigate. So I really love that you're here to liberate women into their power and their sexuality, because I am all about women remembering that they're worthy, and you are 100% worthy of your pleasure. And that's what I want to dive into first, because we were talking off air about how so many women are disconnected from their pleasure. And a few years ago, this was me too. I'd got like bogged down in life and kids and work, and I didn't even know what I needed anymore. And I hear this from women all the time. I work with couples and women in relationships, and so many of them are so disconnected from their pleasure. So I really want to dive into that. And something that I hear from them a lot is that they're just so in their heads. They're judging themselves, they're not in their bodies. They don't even know what feels good in their body anymore. And it's heartbreaking. So I'd really love to start with self-pleasure and just how important it is, and just how sacred and special it can be. And I know in my experience that it can look so many different ways as well. So I'd love to dive into that.
Yeah, such a huge topic, self-pleasure. I think what you're saying about this inherent disconnect that women have, to our pleasure has been really hardwired into us from society. You know, society it views sex through a male lens,
Mm.
meaning that it is very much directed towards men. You know, that there is this idea that's inherent in society that pleasure is just for men, and it's so disempowering for women. And, you know, we see it in so many, you know, different forms of media, in pornography. You know, it's very much like pleasure and women are for the male gaze. And I am using binary language here. However, you know, everything that I'm sharing is also applicable for all female bodied people, pussy owners. Yeah, I am using binary language, however, just because this is the Worthy Woman podcast, so directing what I am saying to women at the moment. But yeah, so we have this view of sex, and it that has been given to us by society through, you
Mm.
know, movies, in TV, in pornography, that is literally created for the male gaze, and it creates this idea that women's bodies are for the male gaze, that our pleasure isn't important, and that our pleasure is second to men's pleasure. And this is a
Mm.
really inherent theme in society. And I think this has a huge impact on how women view their pleasure, meaning their pleasure isn't for them anymore. Their pleasure is for other people. Their pleasure doesn't belong to them. Their pleasure isn't actually something that they can take ownership of and that they can access themselves. And there's this idea that women, you know, can only access pleasure through other people. And I think really noticing that story that we've been shown and told time and time again is a huge key to unlocking the fact that pleasure is for us as well. You
Mm.
know, our pleasure is ours, and we have access to our pleasure in such a beautiful way because it's ours. It's our bodies, you know, it's within us. So, you know, a huge piece to starting to access pleasure and deep pleasure within us is actually remembering and learning that pleasure is for us. You know, that our pleasure is ours, and we have the right to access it, and we have the means to access it. You know, I think something that has been also lost is, you know, we live in such a fast paced society, and people don't create time for pleasure. And I think, you know, we live in a really, really, you know, tricky society where it's constantly go, go, go. We're always on the move. We've got so much going on. People live such full lives. And often one of the first things to be forgotten about is creating time for pleasure and prioritizing pleasure. Mm. So I
Yeah,
think that's a big part of where this disconnect to pleasure comes from.
yes. Oh, I love that. I'm just like nodding, nodding, nodding. And I really do believe that exactly what you said, that our pleasure is for us first. You know,
Mm,
I've been in a relationship for 19 years, but I've always felt like it's for me first. You
mm,
know, I'm not here for somebody else's pleasure. Like, I'm as worthy and deserving as pleasure and being in that for myself, with myself. And
mm,
like we were talking off air, that I've actually believed always, I know something that comes up a lot with the women that I work with, and I was sharing with you, is that women want to be desired, you know.
mm,
And like we both were saying, I was like, do you desire yourself? And I feel
mm.
like allowing yourself to explore your own pleasure can help you desire yourself more, you know?
100%. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. It's such an
Yeah.
important piece. And I think, you know, that disconnect to our pleasure comes from a disconnect to self. It comes
Mm.
from, it's a part of ourselves that can get, you know, pushed to the side. And there's also no shame in any of this. I want to be really
Yes.
clear that there is no shame in being disconnected to yourself and being disconnected to your pleasure, because, you know, like I said, we lead full lives. We, have these huge expectations placed on us by, relationships, society, even conversations we have with our friends. And it can send us into a shutdown, a disconnect, and there's no shame in that either. Like I've definitely been there.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
I've
Yeah.
been there, and I still go there at times, feeling super disconnected from myself and my pleasure. It is a journey that we will navigate our entire lives. So I want to be
Yes.
really clear for those of you listening who are feeling like, oh my God, this is me. Am I normal? Am I
Yes.
alone in
And
this? You're not
and
alone in
I
this.
think the whole thing of connecting to yourself, it's a practice, isn't
Hmm.
it? It's pleasure is a
Yeah.
practice. Connecting to yourself is a practice.
Yeah.
Communicating your needs is a practice, like everything that they're all skills or they're all a practice. That's how I see it. It's like, I think, like you said, we live in this fast paced, like full society, and everyone's looking for like a one and done, or like quick,
Hmm.
like let's quickly do this thing. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
what if the point wasn't to do it quickly?
Yeah. Oh, I
What
love
if
that.
the point is to do it slowly, intentionally, to build on it? I know my pleasure with myself, and even I was saying to you before we went live, we'll dive into in relationships and having that intimate connection, because like we were saying, you need to have an intimate connection to yourself in order to have a thriving intimate relationship with your partner. And that's what creates the safety. And I know that was true for me. So the more I build, like over the years, the more I built the safety in myself and like strengthen my connection with myself,
Mm,
the more comfortable and confident and open I feel to explore more of my pleasure or more intimacy with my partner. And this is where, like we were saying, it gets to be like sacred, it gets to be spiritual. Like, it gets to be so magical and like mind blowing when you have that really deep, open connection. And well, this is why I would never wish to go back to my relationship like way back in the beginning. I would never wish to go back to those early days of intimacy, or even back to when we, first got together. Yeah, it was exciting, but it wasn't as deep. There
mm,
wasn't that deep connection. There wasn't um that safety, that openness, that I really want to say like sacredness and like spiritual element to it, because I know myself deeper now, and
mm,
my partner knows himself deeper, and we're more willing to explore and get curious about each other now than we ever were. So I think this is where, and I love this because I'm obviously a relationship coach. I've been in a relationship for a long time. And I think in society, there's this view that like intimacy dries up, or,
mm,
the longer you're together, it gets boring, it gets old, like all these stories. And I don't buy into them. I honestly think the better it gets, the better it gets. That's been
mm,
my experience. And not by accident, because like it's not by accident. It's because exactly what you said, it's a practice.
mm.
So
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, my relationship is only, we've been together for only 2 years, but you know, putting effort into our sex lives, putting effort into ourselves as individuals, growing as individuals.
mm,
And I look back at the woman I was 2 years ago, and I thought I was like so, knew myself so
yes,
well and like so
yes,
embodied and like, oh yeah, I know my sexuality so well. I'm all over this. And I look back to 2 years ago and I wasn't communicating all of my needs, and I wasn't, as deeply connected to myself as I am now. And I know I'll look back in 5, 10, 20 years
yes,
and it will be the same thing. It's a journey, deepening the connection to ourselves, deepening the connection to our pleasure. It is a journey and it will change and it is seasonal. And there will be winter seasons where it won't be as present in our lives, and that is okay and that is beautiful. But I think what's really important, like you've said, is having a practice that you can look at, and you can employ this practice to engage your pleasure, to connect to yourself, and having that to lean on is such a supportive tool. um so creating a pleasure practice that feels really good for you. And this will look different for everyone. No two people have the same desires or exactly the same, kinky nuances. Everyone is so different. And that's probably my favorite part about sexuality. I just love how different everyone is. And, there's no right or wrong way for pleasure to look. There is no right or wrong way for it to sound or for it to be. And yeah, I think, like we were saying, connecting to ourselves is the start of then connecting to our pleasure and really starting to understand, okay, what do I need this practice to look like? What tools do I need to support me? Yeah.
Yes, beautiful. And I just absolutely love that so much. And I love how like it just it all links in. So it's literally like the more connected you are to yourself, the more connected you can be to your pleasure. And then the more connected you are to your pleasure, the more you can have like this thriving sexual intimate connection in your
Mm,
relationship. And I love how you shared that connecting to yourself is the key to that. And I'd really like to dive into that a bit more because I know we're both in relationships. A lot of the women I listen to are in relationships. And like I was saying to you before we went live, a lot of women say to me, I hear a lot of like, I don't have time. I don't have time for intimacy. I don't have time for connection. Um, you know, I, as a mum, I've used this excuse before as well. I'm a mum, so I can't do that. That's another one of those like,
mhm,
societal layers. And there's so many of them. But also so many women desire to be desired by their men. They
mm,
really, it's almost like they're waiting for him to initiate, waiting for him to do all the right things, waiting for him to make her feel a certain way so that she
mm,
wants to open up. And it doesn't happen like that because, like, as we know, you can't control the other person.
mhm,
And your pleasure and your happiness cannot be in the hands of someone else's what they do or don't do and their behavior and how they look at you and all those things. And I think, again, it comes back to what you said, the whole narrative that we're sold in society that women's pleasure is for men. So I think this is where women get a lot of the confusion that they're waiting for their men to desire them, or they don't think they're
mm,
sexy or beautiful or feminine enough. I mean, that just
mm,
is just crazy. How can you not be feminine enough? Like, there's so many differences to all of that. But yeah, I hear from women a lot that they're craving to feel desired by their men. And I know that the answer is not to look for it in their men, it's to look for
mm,
it in themselves. And this is what I remind them of. And I'd just love to hear your perspective on that and to dive into it because I think it's so important and it's a massive piece in how confident a woman can feel in her intimacy and in her sexual expression and in being able to express whatever she wants to express in whatever way she wants to express it.
mm. It's actually really interesting that you've brought this up because I recently had an experience with my partner a few weeks ago before I left. We're currently like we're apart, like he's living interstate and we're going to be apart for the next sort of 4+ months. And, I got into this, like I had this story going through my head. We had a week together before I went and he was working and I had in my head like I wanted him to read my mind and to know exactly what I was thinking and to know that like I wanted to be romanced in that last week and to know that I wanted to be desired. And he's beautiful and he put so much effort in um throughout that week, but it wasn't what my expectations were, I suppose. And I hadn't communicated what my
Yes.
expectations were. And it's like, and I got all reactive and I, threw all of my stuff onto him, not like literally, but like just,
Yes.
projected all of my stuff, all
Yes.
of those emotions that, disappointment and that, my expectations hadn't been met. And it's that classic thing of when you're feeling all of these things towards your partner, you're not desiring me, you're not, doing enough, you're not putting in enough effort into, you're not communicating with me, blah, 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 whatever it is, whatever that story is, take a look at yourself. Just take a step back and just have a little look at yourself. Because when I did that, I noticed, okay, I have these high expectations about how I would like my last 3 nights with him to go. And I haven't communicated that. I just expected that he would, have it all sussed out and all planned out. I hadn't communicated what I was needing. I hadn't communicated those expectations. Um, and I hadn't actually put any effort at all into creating a beautiful experience for both of us. I was just sitting back and like waiting for it to all unfold in front of my eyes.
Yes.
So I think where I'm going with this is I think, it's really easy when things aren't going the way we want them to go to blame and shame and project all of those emotions that we're feeling onto our partners, and to make them the bad woman or the bad guy in that situation, or the bad person in that situation. And actually we forget to look at ourselves. So I think when it comes to desirability, yes, it's beautiful to be desired by our partners, but I think, if they're not giving us that, have you had that tough conversation with them being like, I want to feel desired by you, I would love to I would love for us to have a really beautiful evening together. I would love some effort on your end. Have you communicated that that's a need? You need to feel desired. And then also coming back to, are you desiring yourself right now? Do you feel sexual? Do you feel sensual? Do you feel connected? Do you feel embodied? Are you feeling yourself right now? And if the answer is no, then, taking a look at that, because if you're not feeling connected to your sexuality, if you're not feeling connected to your sensuality and to your pleasure, the chances are is you are not giving off signals to your partner that you want to be intimate with them or you want to have sex with them. Like, so really taking a look at yourself, and in a super loving and compassionate way doing this. This is not an opportunity for you to blame and shame yourself and put yourself down. This is an opportunity to just take a little look, a gentle, loving look at yourself and go, okay, what can I do to have my needs met right now? Where am I not showing up for myself right now? Am I desiring myself right now? And if we're speaking into desirability, really communicating that to your partner. I would love to feel desired by you. That makes me feel really sexy, and it makes me feel really nice, because that's a totally valid need. But I think often when it comes to that, I want to feel desired by my partner, there is a deeper layer to it being, are you
Yes.
desiring yourself? And are
Yes.
you doing things that turn you on? Even if they're, just day-to-day things, how much pleasure are you incorporating in your life? How much time are you taking for yourself to do
Yes.
things that light you up and fill your cup up and make you feel juicy and alive and turned on?
Yes, because it's 100% an energy.
Mm,
I think that's what we
100%.
forget. Like we get so in our minds and in our heads, and oh, why doesn't he desire me, or why isn't this happening, or why isn't it meeting my expectations? And like there's just no energy there. And well, there
Mm,
is energy, but it's not the energy that you want. So I
mm,
think we have to often, like you said, it can be really difficult for a lot of people to accept that they have to look at themselves. And
mm,
I get that. That was me a few years ago, until I realized it's empowering.
mm.
It's
It
so
is.
empowering. Like,
It
it's
is.
not, like you said, it's not a blame game. It's not that you're pointing the finger at yourself and saying, oh, it's my fault.
Mm,
You're literally just taking back your power and empowering yourself to go, okay, well, what in this can I change? Or
yeah.
what part of this is mine? Because there's always going to be a part of it that's yours, especially in relationship. Um, and just taking ownership of that part. And for me, I'm like, cool, I want to get out of this feeling that I don't like as fast as possible. I want to be in my
Mm,
pleasure. I want to be desired. So how can I desire myself more? What can I do for myself? I loved those
mm,
questions that you said, because it is that simple. You just ask a different question instead of saying, why isn't he doing this? Or why isn't she
mm,
desiring me? Or whatever it is. It's like, how can I desire myself more? Or what can I give myself? I call it like
mm.
soul nourishment. Like, how can I like
Exactly.
really just get myself feeling full and radiant and, if I can, like overflowing, and
Mm,
it can be really simple things. I know for me, baths, dancing,
mhm,
certain songs. I've got playlists of like certain songs that just really get me into my body, and they're just such powerful anchors to help
mm,
you reconnect to yourself on that deeper level. And yeah, it's crazy. It's like so many times I'll like put on that song and I'll dance with myself, and like my husband will be in another area of the house, but he feels the energy shift, and he'll just literally come in the room and he'll say, I don't know why, but I just felt like I had to come to you. Like, it's
oh,
amazing that they can totally feel the energy shift. Or,
mm,
if I've had a bad night with the kids and I come out grumpy and then I go, do you know what? I just need 10 minutes in the sun. So I'm just going to go
mhm,
sit in the sun, ground into the earth, like listen to the birds, like just have my moment. And then I come back in. He's like, wow, your face has changed.
so
Like
true.
so
Yeah.
powerful.
And I love what you said there. It's these simple, pleasure-filled practices that you can incorporate into your day. I know a lot of your listeners are mamas, and I can't speak of a place from a place of experience with having children myself. Um, but I know days are full and finding time is hard. It's really hard. But I love what you said about, taking just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 minutes to just have to yourself where you can just take a breath
Mhm.
and connect back into yourself, and using, if you only have a short amount of time, being consciously like intentional with that time. This is my 10, being intentional. This is my 10 minutes in the sun where I'm going to notice the sensation of the sunshine on my body. And I'm going
Mm,
to sit here for 10 minutes and I'm just going to feel that. I'm going to feel how beautiful that feels in my body. You know, we can turn these like little, moments of our day into pleasure filled practices that don't require much time, that
yes.
don't require much time. I speak to a lot of women who, they work, really big jobs. They have, a lot going on in their life. And they're like, I just don't have time to connect to myself. And it's like, well, how taking a look at how long you're spending on your phone scrolling, is it possible to, rather than scrolling for 30 minutes, hopping on a meditation or some beautiful music and placing a hand on your heart and a hand on your body and just grounding yourself, remembering that you are in this body, and noticing sensations. And yeah, I love what you said about there just being,
Yes.
taking small moments and turning them
Yes.
into an opportunity for pleasure, or for a chance to even just like recalibrate your nervous system. Yeah.
Yes, and that is so important, I feel like the recalibration of your nervous system. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not surprised that women often don't feel like they want to open to intimacy.
Mhm.
They're, like you said, they've got full jobs, they're tired, they're exhausted, they're depleted, they're running around, they're serving everybody else, and they're last
Mhm.
on the list. Like, they're not serving themselves. So they're often resentful, stretched, like physically, mentally, emotionally. Like, I totally get it. And that was me 3 years ago, so I 100% know, and I had to learn that no one else could create this time for me.
Mm.
I had to learn that no one else is gonna put me first, and I that's my job, and that I needed to put myself first. And for me, I remember I had that time story as well. I used to say, "I don't have time to connect. I don't have time to connect with myself, let alone my husband," or, I had all of that.
Mm.
But then one day I read somewhere and it stuck with me and I still use it today. Every time you want to say, I don't have time for this, whatever it is, and for me, and if you're listening to this conversation, it might be, I don't have time to connect with myself, or I don't have time for my pleasure practice, or to connect intimately with my partner. Anytime I said that, I then had to repeat it in this way. Uh, this is not a priority for me right now.
Mm.
So connecting to myself is not a priority for me. And when I said it like that, I was like, oh, that doesn't feel good. I'm struggling to say that connecting to myself is not a priority to me. That actually
Mm.
stung a bit, and it made me stop and go, it is a priority to me.
Mm.
I am important. I do want to connect to myself. And then I stopped using time as an excuse, because we all have the same amount of time. We get to fill it however we want. There is no right or wrong. But what I realized is I was using time as an excuse. I was almost blaming time for why I couldn't prioritize myself, when again, I needed to look at myself, like we were saying,
Mm.
take back my power, empower myself, and remind myself that I get to make time for whatever is a priority for me. And so often as women, and I was doing this, so I can't judge you, I was prioritizing everybody else's needs, everybody else's stuff, helping everyone else, doing for everybody else, and doing over being with myself.
Mm.
And I had to get that honest with myself to break that pattern, because otherwise I don't think I ever would have made time to connect to myself. And then, like I said, I started and realized it's actually not as hard as I was making it out to be. Like in 10 minutes, I can really deeply connect.
Yeah, it's about making that time, I think. And I love what you said about um, changing that language to this is not a priority for me right now. And like you said, we all have different priorities, and
And
that will
that's
of course
100%
change.
okay. Yes.
Yeah, and that will change over the course of our lives. But I imagine if you're listening to this, if pleasure is a priority for you, if you're noticing that there is, you know, a deficit of pleasure in your life, if you're noticing that you're really wanting to prioritize this, you know, using that as an opportunity to start, this is,
Yes.
yeah, like just to begin, not using time as an excuse anymore. Um, and yeah, like we were saying, it doesn't have to be long practices. It doesn't have to
No.
be, 5-hour devotional to self practices. I mean, if it is that, amazing. I'm so
Amazing.
here
But
for it.
yeah,
Love
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I will say this though, when it comes to pleasure for female bodied people, if we're speaking in terms of arousal, so in order for people with vulvas to become fully aroused, it does often take between 20 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So if you are, it's beautiful to have these practices that are short and sweet that allow you to connect to yourself and to notice pleasure within your body. But if you're someone who's wanting to deepen the pleasure that you're experiencing. You might be someone who has a vibrator by the bed and you love like a little short and sweet, 5-10 minute session. Again, no shame in that. Love it. Pleasure is pleasure. But if you're someone who's wanting to really deepen that, starting to explore time, like starting to explore those longer lengths of time, giving yourself that 40 minutes, an hour to really drop in with yourself, really drop into your body, start to explore different parts of your body, start to explore different parts of your vulva, different sensations, different techniques. Um, and to really deepen that self pleasure practice, I believe really requires time. Yeah,
Does.
and
Yeah.
patience
Yes.
as well, because we're not going to, sit down or lay down every single time we self pleasure and it be like this, oh my God, amazing experience. Like for some people it is, and that's great. But oftentimes, there's blockages that come up. We've had a stressful day. It may take a bit longer to get out of our head and into our body. It we might be emotional, we might be experiencing some sort of trigger. There may be other things moving, and there is a million and one reasons why this could be happening. But if you are someone that is, wanting to deepen that practice, giving yourself 20 to 40 minutes to allow, you know, your arousal, your full body arousal to take place, to allow, um, to allow your vulva to engorge and to become, really open and yeah, ready for pleasure.
Yes.
And yeah.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And I 100% agree. I think we've got to that point that we're even rushing sex. We're even rushing pleasure. Like we're so addicted to productivity that it's like
Mm.
even pleasure has become like make it productive. It's actually scary.
Mm.
I think we're losing that connection to being,
Mm.
and just being in those moments and being with feelings or being with sensations. And I know for me and my husband had to learn how to get creative with creating that time once we had kids, but we didn't let time be an excuse. You know, there was periods of time where we did, but we actually noticed a really negative impact in our relationship. Like you said, when we shelved our pleasure and we didn't make the time for it, we felt disconnected from each other. We felt disconnected from ourselves. We felt cranky. We felt resentful. You know, we both had expectations that we weren't communicating. We both had needs and desires that we weren't meeting. And so we had to, again, make it a priority. Decide to make us and our connection to ourselves and each other a priority again. And it is amazing. Like 20 minutes can feel like 2 hours. It really can. If, like you said, if you're intentional about that time, like 40 minutes can feel like literally 4 hours, you know, like if you're really intentional and you're really there and you're really giving yourself permission, you know, like really just because I think sometimes underneath all this, not giving ourselves time, rushing ourselves, just and all the expectation as well. We talked a bit about that, this expectation that it's going to be a certain way. And then we're not even communicating it, and we're not even preparing ourselves for this elaborate, amazing experience that our heads are so good, like our minds and brains are so good at coming up with these amazing visuals. But like then we're not engaging the body and actually going, okay, well, how can I prepare myself for something like this and to be open to this experience? And I feel that, you know, it is important to make that time and to not put pressure on yourself if you don't, you know, if it's not matching that image, because
absolutely.
It's like, you know, like we were saying before, it's like if you're feeling dry and disconnected and not turned on even in yourself, like you're not going to go and have this amazing experience, and it's just not going to happen because you're not in your body and you're not ready for that experience. Like I know for me it's a lot about cultivating the readiness in myself, you know, cultivating the openness or the receiving or whatever the intention is for me when we're going to intimately connect. It's about, you know, for me, I really have to switch out of business mode. I have to switch out of mum mode. Like I have to do these transitions. And for that, I need time. And I've actually communicated that to my partner. So he knows now that, you know, I might need a bath. If he wants to help me with this transition, he can help me create space, like run me a bath, light some candles. Like he now knows some certain anchors that will help me to open, help me to transition into being and opening and receiving. And again, I think it comes back to communicating that you get to say, I'm really not in the mood because all of this stuff is going on, like mum life, business, work, family, sickness, health, whatever. But you could help me in these ways.
Yeah,
You know?
beautiful. 100%. Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, that communicating our needs and it's like, and communicating where we're at is so important
Yes.
because our partners can't read our minds.
I
And that's
know.
when these stories become created, you know, that story of they're not desiring me or they're not, you know, they don't want to have sex with me anymore. And oftentimes it's not that, it's just
Yeah.
a need for great communication to play out, especially if you are someone who is living a full life. And I love what you said about, you know, having to switch from work mode to mum mode and then to, you know, being a sexual being, you know, it's huge shifts in yourself and it takes time. And I completely resonate with that. Like I feel that too, you know, if I've had a massive day of work and I'm wired, I need that time to drop into myself, to drop into the experience. And you know, sometimes my partner and I will you know come together and you know we've both had really big days, and you know we might not have connected for a couple of days or for a week or whatever, and you know it's really that's what we're really needing. Um, and sometimes we'll end up just laying there, breathing with each other and looking at each other, and that's okay. That's enough. That's
Yeah.
perfect. It feels pleasurable to just lay there with each other, to breathe, to chat, to giggle, to stroke each other, to just like to just be with each other without that expectation of, okay, we're having sex, we're going to be connecting, it's going to be pleasurable, we're having orgasms, it's all go, go, go. Like we've got to get it done, we've got to have it done. It's just shifting that mindset of, let's take the expectations off, let's take the pressure off. If pleasure is a priority, if connection is a priority, allowing that to unfold however it needs to unfold day to day. There are some
Yes.
days where, I last year was a year for me filled with so much grief. I lost my father 12 months ago, and every day was so different. Every day was so different, but connection and intimacy with my partner is a huge priority for me. And even, during that time of grief where I was sexually completely shut down, it was, that priority of, okay, tonight there's no expectation. And I remember him saying to me, every day, every night, all the time, there's no expectations, it's okay, we can just be with each other. So I think also, really reframing how we view sex. What is our idea of connecting? What is our idea of pleasure? It's so common for people to view sex as like that really penis in vagina, or penis and penis, vagina vagina, whatever, and it to be really like genital focused,
Yeah, and just
and
so physical, just so
so
physical.
physical.
And
Yeah,
like that's what
absolutely.
we were saying. Like I feel like when you first meet your partner, it kind of can feel like that. There's
Yeah.
all that physical attraction, there's all this chemistry, there's all these chemicals happening in your body. So there is a physical, but I feel like the longer you're together, like we were saying, there's this opportunity for like a spiritual connection, like an energetic exchange. And
Mm,
that has nothing to do with the physical. Like that can be achieved, like you said. Like, and my husband and I love to eye gaze, and we can have incredible experiences just from eye gazing, or
mm,
just from laying on his chest, or but being with that intention. And you're so right. It's really not as much about the physical as I think so many people have that story about it, and
yeah.
needing to look at that story. I loved how you said that. Like, definitely, I think we all need to look at and just get curious about, what is my story about relationship? What is my story about
Yeah.
sexual intimacy, or
Mm,
sex? Or what is my story about my own self-pleasure practice? What are those stories, and are they
yeah.
serving me? Because,
Yeah.
I had several that weren't serving me. I think we come, like
Same.
we've talked about, from a world that literally feeds us a lot of things that doesn't actually work for us.
Mm,
So it's okay. You're not broken. You don't need fixing, none of those things, but just bringing that curiosity to, okay, is that serving me? And if not, I get to change it, and this
yeah.
is that empowering piece. And yeah, I just wanted to make sure we mentioned that, because I loved how you said that, like really looking at the stories, because
Mm,
that's where it starts.
yeah.
And
100%.
and so many people have, like you said, have that physical story, and it is not physical. Like, I'd love to maybe end on that talking about these other aspects of intimacy, of sexual connection, even our own pleasure. I don't always feel like it's physical, even with myself.
Mm,
Like, yes, that's part of it, but there's so much more to it.
there is. There absolutely is. And I think, yeah, I love everything that you've said. And I think, we have the opportunity to rewrite our stories as well, and I love what you said about, getting curious about other stories that we're telling ourselves. And they often revolve around how something should look. And I
Mm,
hate the word should.
I
I
hate
hate
that word
it.
too.
I hate that because it is going to be so different for everyone depending on your needs, on your desires, on your boundaries, and on the season of your life that you're in. And it will always change. Like, we are constantly changing, especially as women. We're changing. If you're someone who bleeds, we change on the daily. And even if you're not someone who bleeds, we're still changing all the
Yes.
time. So just, getting comfortable with the fact that, these stories that we've been shown, and these examples of sex that we've been shown, this should of sex should look this way, or self pleasure should look this way, you know, does that actually feel good for me? Is that true for me? What would I like it to look like, and
Mm.
getting really curious about that. I'm huge on that.
Yes, I love that. Like, because that's just so true. Like, I hate shoulds. I totally feel you. I literally, like, when I hear people shooting, I'm like, you're literally shitting all over yourself. Like, and my husband hates it. If a should accidentally slips out of my mouth, he's automatically triggered. Like, he's just like, so I've had to learn to be like really conscious of that word. I don't like it anyway, but sometimes it just accidentally slips out. But it can just be so triggering because it makes you feel
Mm,
like you should already know this, or you should already have it sorted out, or, and no one has anything sorted out. We're not meant to. Like you said, we're
mm,
constantly evolving and changing. Like, just when we
mm,
think we've got it, like
mm.
motherhood is so like this, life is so like this, I think relationships are so like this, like, or just when we think we know ourselves, something happens, we
Mm,
go through something like
yeah.
what you went through with your dad, which is just heartbreaking. I was just like, oh, just holding you and
Mm,
just feeling your heart. Like, I cannot even imagine the grief, that you would have gone
mm,
through. And, I've haven't lost a parent, but I've experienced grief in different ways. And I know for me, I've always found that it really is love just expressed in a different way. And
mm.
that's just, it's so incredible to just allow that love to keep coming through us. And this can even happen in our relationships, like you said, there'll be times where you're not feeling it, and that's okay. And being with that feeling and being with it together is that will bring you closer anyway. That creates
Yeah,
connection anyway,
exactly.
It's like connection is not what people think it is. Sex is not what people think it is. Like, intimacy, pleasure, it's not
Mm,
what I think we're kind of told, or what these stories in our minds create. It's not any of that. It's yours ultimately, which is,
yeah,
where we started with this conversation. And,
exactly.
I just really hope that, to the women listening, that it's this invitation to just take it back as yours, and to rewrite the story, as Ruby has said. And oh my God, I literally could just talk to you forever. You're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. And
Oh,
oh, it's just been so juicy. And I just know so many, there'll be so many takeaways from this. I 100% know it. And honestly, I really encourage everybody listening to go and follow Ruby. She is incredible. You will, if you want to rewrite some stories, literally just looking at her Instagram and everything she shares, you will be rewriting stories. It's so powerful, so beautiful. I love your work, and I'm just so grateful for your time and everything you've shared with us. So thank you so much, beautiful.
thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure, Aston. I so appreciate you, yeah, having me on. Such a juicy chat. I've
Oh,
loved it.
loved it. Literally could go all night.
I
I'm
know.
going to put all Ruby's links below so you can go check it out, make it super easy for you. And my intention with sharing this episode is that exactly what Ruby said. I want to liberate more women. I want more women to know that they're worthy of their pleasure, worthy of their needs being met, worthy of love, worthy of intimacy, worthy of connecting with themselves. So please let this be your sign to reconnect to yourself on a deeper level for you. For you. I really want to make it clear that this is all about for you first, and everyone else, your partner or whatever is a beautiful byproduct of it, but we're doing this for us. We're really taking back our power. So thank you so much for being here. Share with me and tag me and Ruby in stories. Let us know your biggest takeaways. We'd love to know. And yeah, I'll see you in the next episode.